Today's daf is Maseches Nazir Daf Yud Aleph. We're at the top of Daf Yud Aleph. The first word on the first line, the Mishnah. Zok the Mishnah. Mazgulois hakois va'omar hareini nazir imenu hareza nazir. If somebody pours somebody a kois, and the guy that gets poured a kois says, I'm a nazir from it, hareza nazir, Allah is it becomes a nazir, and he's aser in all yayin. Zok the Mishnah weiter. There was a maisa with a lady that she was drunk. Somebody poured her kois of wine. Va'amra, and she said, I'm a nazir from this. Amru Chacham, so Chacham said that that she's not a nazira. Why? Because we say their intention was only to say that this kois should be also on me like a carbon, and it's chal is a neder on this kois yayin. However, naziris is not chal. So the Gemara is going to get right to it. Frektahila Gemara Maisa Lister. This Maisa, the Mishnah, is saying that she's not a nazira, saying she's not a nazir. Amrit Bereisha raise a nazir. The Reishi says nazir, Bahada Tanya, and then you bring a Maisa Beisha Achas. And it says in this end of the Mishnah, that Chacham said that she was a schaven for Esa Neder. Hayena Achrina Shari. It's Masha Dafka. This case she's also as a Neder, but a regular Yain, she's mutter, there's no Zir Schal. It's Maisa Listar. If the Gemara Chasur Mechsur. No, you have Mishnah is missing some words. V'hachi Ketani, this is how you have to learn the Mishnah. Mazgu loyes hakois va'omar hareini nazir menu. If they poured him a kois and he said he's a nazir from it, the halach is like the first halach on the Mishnah, hareza nazir. And now you have to add on to the Mishnah and read v'im shikurhu. If the guy's drunk, v'amar hareini nazir menu, then he's not a nazir. Rather, he's only usher in that kois. And on that, what the Mishnah is bringing a maisa by isha achas shikaira. That if a person's drunk and says not a nazir, then it's only chal iser neder. So Zok the Gemara Taka, what's the difference? My taimo, how come on a shikr it's not chal naziris? Zok the Gemara, because a person that's drunk and says a command amar like carbon, it's as if he's saying that this kosh should be a carbon. The chitema lema hachi. So why did the guy say a lashon neder? Why is the guy saying a lashon nazir? The guy's using a lashon nazir. He's saying hare who like carbon. He's saying hare nazirim imenu. So why is neder chal? Why is iser chal? Iser carbon chal? Zok the Gemara Savar, the drunk person is thinking that if he says a lashon neder, then ma'asim li'achrina mitzarenli, they're just going to bring me more wine. Why? Because the derech by drunk people, you see somebody that's drunk, people always tell him drink more, drink more. So Mela is afraid if he just says that it's a neder, they're just going to try to bring him more. And even if he asks this cup of wine, he says, I want also this, it's a carbon, and I'll bring him a different one. It doesn't have a carbon. So therefore the guy is thinking, the drunk person is thinking, I'll just say something that it's very clear they don't want to drink any more wine, and once I'm kabel naziris on me, then they're not going to think about bringing me any wine, they know it's asur. But avada, the guy's intention is not for naziris, rather to make it asur iser carbon, and on that the Mishnah is bringing maisa. The Maisa Nami Bisha Achas. That's what the Mishnah brings. Maisa Nami Bisha Achas. Zok the Hilig Mishnah Vayter. The Mishnah now is going to bring three different cases where a person is not makabel on himself, all dinim of naziris. Harein nazir al manashe hey shoyse yayin. The guy says, I want to be a nazir, but I want to be able to drink wine. Or he says, Mitam l'mesim, I want to be able to be Mitam l'mesim. Or halacha is Hareza Nazir. Naziris is chal on him, but also Bechulin is also an old Naziris Saya Isser Yain Saya Isser Tuma, even though he wasn't Makabal. Zok the Mishnah Vayter, if he says he's Makabal Harini Nazir and he says Yedan Ishi Yesh Naziris, he knows his Naziris and a Nazir is Aser in cutting his hair and Tuma, but any Yedeya Shan Nazir Aser B'Yayin. However, I did not know at the time I made a neder that a Nazir is Aser in Yayin. And I wasn't Makabal on myself this Isser. So what's the halacha? Zok the Mishnah. Hareza Asr. Halacha is he's Asr also in Yayin because he's Makabal himself as Naziris. However, there's machlekes. Reb Shimon is matir. Reb Shimon holds that he's not a Nazir at all because he wasn't Makabal himself as Isser Yayin, so therefore Naziris is not chal at all. Zok the Mishnah Vayter, a third halacha. If somebody says Hareini Nazir and he says Yidani Nazir also B'Yayin, I knew that a Nazir is also B'Yayin. Aval Savar Yishacham materially. However, I thought the Chachamim would be matter for me to say Yayin because I can't live without wine. I need it for my health. And I'm Ainis. He says, he works for the Chaver Kadisha, he buries dead people, and maybe he gets paid to do it, and he says he needs to do it. So halacha is, the Mishnah, Hareza mutter, he's mutter at all Yisur Nazirs is not chal at all. For Reb Shimon Oiser, however, Reb Shimon argues and he says that all Yisur Nazirs are chal. Zok the Gemara. So the Gemara is going to take apart these three dinim here. Machlokes, Reb Shimon. So what was the middle case of the Mishnah? The middle case was, if a guy says Hareini Nazir, and he adds on and he says, I know that there's a Naziris in the Torah, but I did not know that a Nazir is asr to drink wine. So the Tanakam said, asr. Shimon said, Yemutter is not a Nazir at all. So Frek the Gemara, V'liflig Namir B'Shimon B'Reisha. What was the first case in the Mishnah? The guy says, Hareini Nazir, Amanah said I should drink wine. So the Mishnah said, everybody agreed. The Mishnah didn't bring a machlokes. Everybody said that Harez and Nazir and is aser, even though he wants to try to exclude drinking wine. So Hakam in the middle case when he says he knows the Nazirs but he doesn't know the Nazir aser Yarim, Shimon says he mutter. Let Rabbi Shimon argue on the first case also when he says Amanashe Heishes Yayin. Zakti Gemara, Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Shimon Levi said to answer the question that Chalokai Rabbi Shimon after Reisha. Taka, you're right. Beken Zagin, there Shimon Taka argues on the Reisha also. And perhaps the Mishnah didn't say it in the Reisha because it didn't have to. Reb Shimon argued he said it on the middle case, and who had it on the first case. That's Reb Shimon Levi. Ravina, Amar Ravina says, the Reisha loy palag Reb Shimon. The first din, Reb Shimon did not argue by Heishes Yayin. Why? My time, Azok Tehillig Gemara. Why did he agree that he's taka on Nazir in the first case? Because the guy's trying to make a Tanai on something that is clearly written in the Torah. A Nazir is also Yayin and Tumah. Allah is Tanai Batal. It's Tanai's Batal. So therefore, the only thing you have left over from his words is only what is said in the beginning, Hareini Nazir. So Mele is Chal on him, a full-fledged Nazir. So that's Ravina's pshat. So Machlokes, Rabbi Shua ben Levi and Ravina had to learn Rabbi Shimon. So Zak the Gemara, Rabbi Shua ben Levi Amarlach. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is going to learn that, because Rabbi Shua ben Levi learns that Rabbi Shimon argues even on the Reisha. The Reisha says he's a Nazir. Rabbi Shimon ben Levi is not a Nazir. So Frek the Gemara, Ravina had a good word. He said his Masa Mashakasa B'Torah Tanai Batal. So what's pshat on the Reisha? Rabbi Shua ben Levi that Rabbi Shimon argues. Zak the Gemara, Rabbi Shua ben Levi Amalach, Hayal Manas Kechutz Dami. This that he said, Amanashe Heishes Yayin, it's not a Tanai, rather it has more of din of chutz. It's like he's saying, Hareini Nazir chutz me'isr sh'siyas Yayin. And if you say that, it's not considered you made a Tanai to mevatel in the Torah, rather you're mekabel on yourself only some of the din of a Naziris. It's different. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon holds that you're not a Nazir. Why? Because he holds that a Nadir has to be mekabel older than a Naziris, otherwise you're not a Nazir. Zok the Gemara, Tana Kavasei Ravina, we learned, bring a raya from the Brisa like Ravina. Ravina says that Rabbi Shimon doesn't argue on the Reisha, Masal Mashkasa B'Torah. Amar Hareini Nazir, Manashe Sheis Yayim, Mitam L'Mesim, Hareini Nazir Asa B'Chulan. It says on the Brisa, if somebody says Hareini Nazir, Manashe Sheis Yayim, Mitam L'Mesim, Allah is a Nazir and is Asa B'Chulan. Why? Because B'Torah. So you see in the Brisa like Ravina, that everybody agrees to Masal Mashkas B'Torah, and has taka din like Masal Mashkas B'Torah, and not a din like Rabbi Shimon Levi wants to say that it's the din of chutz. Zok the Gemara Vayter. The Mishnah said, if somebody says he knows that another asar yayin, but he thought that chachamim matim, so that was the last din in the Mishnah. So Tanakan Rabbanan said a mutter. Reb Shimon argued and he said that is asar. So Frek the Gemara, the Chayr is there in the Mishnah. Va'amar Reisha, we said in the din before, if a guy says any idea shanazar asar b'yayin, so that was That was a middle case in the Mishnah. So Chacham say it's Aser, and Reb Shimon is Matir. So Frekti Gemara, Eima Nami Hareza Aser. So the Rabbanan said in the middle case of the Mishnah that is Mutter. So Frekti Gemara, why don't the Rabbanan say in this case also, if somebody says, but he thought the Chacham Matir also, Rabbanan should say it's Aser. And Reb Shimon that says in the middle case in the Mishnah that Reb Shimon's Matir, you should say also here also Matir. How come in the last case in the Mishnah Reb Shimon Asers, and he holds that all the Nazir is Chal? So Zakti Gemara, Eimanami Areza Aser Reb Shimon Matir. So you're right, Taka have to switch it around. This is Gemara's first teretz. Reb Shimon Taka is Matir just like he's Matir in the middle sefer, and Rabbanan holds Aser. Iba Yisema, another teretz Zakti Gemara. I'll tell you, no, don't switch around their shittas to be the same. The second din in the Mishnah and the third din. Why? Because Hasam in the Reisha could go into Nazar Mechada. In the middle case in the Mishnah, it's talking about that he was only Mekabel one Isser Nazar for himself because he didn't know part of them, whatever. So the Rabbanan hold, like they said in the Mishnah on Gimel Beis, that feeling Nazar Alam Achas Behen, even if a Nazar is only Mekabel one Isser, it's Chal Naziris. And having Nazir Ba'aser. But Reb Shimon, the Amar Shiyaz Mekor, Reb Shimon over there says that you're not a Nazir until you Mekabel all of them, therefore he holds his mutter in the middle case in our Mishnah. Because Naziris is not Chal at all. However, the Seifa, the Nadar Mekulu, Seifa, he made a Neder, he's Mekabel all he's doing Naziris. He just had Charata afterwards because he said, I'm a Oinus, I work in a cemetery, or I can't live without wine. So the Itchel Machada, he just wants to be matir one of them. So the Rabbanan da Amri Afilu leNazar Ma'achzan have a Nazir. So Rabbanan da hold that even if you only Nazir is Makabel one Isser, he still has a din Nazir. So therefore, Kim Mitchell Machada Minayu Ishtari. So the Rabbanan hold that if you are shoyl, if you matir one Isser, then all the Yisurim become mutter. Just like Rabbanan hold, which is an interesting comparison, that just like if you're Mekabel, and a Nazir can Mekabel one Isser and still have a din Nazir, so too, if a Nazir is shoyl on one Isser that he has, then all of them fall off. But Reb Shimon da Amad Shiyaz Mekulim, however, Reb Shimon that says that you're not a Nazir until you ask yourself an all din Naziris, so Kimichel Naimahu, so even if you're shoyl on one Isser, the Naziris is still not mutter, Adam Mitchell Makulu, until you take off all Yisur Naziris, Misham Hachi Katani, Reb Shimon Oiser. And that's why our Mishnah says in the last din that Reb Shimon is Aser, because Reb Shimon holds there's no such thing as taking off one Isur Naziris. It's either all or none. That's the second shot. Now the Gemara is going to bring a third shot. The Iba Yisema, if you want, I could tell you a different teretz. That the last halacha in the Mishnah where somebody says, I thought the Chacham would be matir from me an Isser, Nazir, is not b'chlal tied to the machlokes, the middle halacha, if somebody's mekabel himself some Isur Nazir. B'nidei Einzin, kamifically in Plukta Shmuel Varasi. I could tell you that the last case is Nidri Einzin, it's a whole different machlekes that is told. In Plukta Shmuel Rasi, machlekes Shmuel Rasi in Mesech Sadarim we had Daf Chaf Alva Beis Legabe Nidri Yoinsin. The Tanan, the Mishnah there says, Arba Nadarim Mitir Chacham. There are four different scenarios of Nadarim where the Chacham will matter them. And what are they? Nidri Zeruzin. If somebody makes a neder just because he wants to push his friend, he wants to mizar as him, but he's not really, his kavanah is not really that the neder should be chal. Or the second type of neder is nidrei havai. It's just like an exaggeration neder. He's just exaggerating. So avada over there also the same thing. His kavanah is not really for the neder bichal. Or nidrei shkaga, he swear. He thought he made a tanai in a neder and something happened and he didn't realize it already happened. He pushed made a mistake. It was a shagig. And the fourth case is nidrei einstein, who's tali the neder, the chalois neder in a tanai. And Tanai was a sky and Ba'inus. He had no choice. So for Amar of Yehuda, Amar of Asi, Yehuda Rasi says that they don't become mutter by themselves. Rather, you have to be matir them with a chacham. So when Rav Yehuda said this halacha in front of Shmuel, Shmuel said, Amar li Tana Katani Yitiru Chacham. Tana Mishnah said that the Chacham matir is dar, but at Amar Tzrichen She'elecham, and you're saying that it's mashma in the Mishnah that they were mutter by themselves. But at Amar Tzrichen She'elecham, you tell me that no, you have to go to a Chacham, a Shoyel has to actually go and be matir in the nether. Without that, it's going to be aser. So Zok the Gemara, this shackle of Ataria between Rav Yehuda and Rav Asi and Shmuel, that's the last halacha in our Mishnah. That's a machlekes Rabbanan and Reb Shimon. Rabbanan savrik Shmuel. Rabbanan hold like Shmuel and nidri ointinam mutar legamri by themselves, and nothing else has to be done. No further action is needed, and therefore Naziris is not chal. That's what Rabbanan say in the last halacha in our Mishnah. Reb Shimon holds like Rav Yehuda and Rav Asi that says that nidri ointinam mutar only al yidei she'ela, and therefore Zak Reb Shimon in our Mishnah. Reb Shimon Oyser, he asers until you actually go to a chacham and matter it. Zok the Mishnah, Hareini Nazir. If somebody says, I'm going to be a Nazir, and then he adds on a few words, he says, Va'alai legaleach Nazir. I'm also going to bring korbanos of a Nazir. Shama Chaver Va'amar, and his friend heard him say this, Va'amar, and he said the same thing, Va'ani, and then he also added on, Va'alai legaleach Nazir. I also want to be a Nazir and be a Nuschayev and korbanos like a Nazir. So since they said this, the halacha is that Naziris is chal on them, and besides for regular Naziris that they have to bring korbanos, it's chal on them, they both also have to bring Naziris for others. Because when they said already Nazir, included in that is when you be Megalech, have to bring korbanos. So you add a Legaleach Nazir, it means they have to, they're Mekabel themselves to also bring an additional Kabbalah to bring korbanos for other Nazirim. So Zaktim Mishnah, what should they do here? You pick him if they were smart and they don't want to bring korbanos twice for their own Naziris and for someone else's Naziris. Megalchen zeh. So each guy should bring korbanos of his friend, and like that they'll be mekayim the korbanos of a Nazir, and also be mekayim the korbanos of his own Naziris that his friend is bringing for him. They don't do like that. Rather, each guy brings a korban for himself when he's megaleach and megalach nazir macher. Then they have to bring korbanos for other nazirim in addition to their own korbanos. And Azak the Gemara, Iboilhu. Gemara wants to know. If somebody says Hareini Nazir legaleach Nazir, like the Mishnah said, and Shama Chaveroi va'amar va'ani. His friend heard and he said va'ani, but he did not add on the words legaleach Nazir, like the Mishnah says. So Mal, what's going to be the halacha? Do you say va'ani akulu diburim masrim is going on everything, the full lashon that the first guy used, which is Hareini Nazir v'alai legaleach Nazir? Or do you say va'ani? So it's going on the whole dibur. Dilma apalga diburim masrim, is it going on only half? Which half, I guess we'll see, but is it going on the whole thing? That's the question. So Zakti Gemara, if you want to say that Va'aniya Palga Dibur Mashma, it's going on half of the Dibur, so you can still clear. Areisha, is it going on the first part that he said Hareini Nazir, the first guy said Hareini Nazir, and Nazir says Chal, or Seifo, or is it going on the second part that the guy said Valai Legaleach Nazir? And in that case, I'll just have to bring Kabbanas for another Nazir, however, Nazirs will not be Chal on it. Zog the Gemara Tashma, I'll bring you a raya. Because the Mishnah says, Va'ani, V'olai legaleach Nazir. The Mishnah says the second person heard the first person say, and he said Va'ani, and he also added on, V'olai legaleach Nazir. And the Mishnah said, Imoyu pikchim megalchem zeh. So Medika Omar, Va'ani, even Tano, the Mishnah was Myrich, and he said that the second person said Va'ani, V'olai, Shema Mina, you see from this, that only if he said Va'ani, then it would be a palga diburu. Tana said he had to say Va'alai legaleach Nazir. He didn't just say va'ani. You also said v'alai legaleach nazir. It's mashma if you just said va'ani, you would only go on half. Zok the Gemara, Amri, apalga dibur mashma. You're right. The Bnei Yeshiva said you're right. That it's taka muchach from the fact it's taka muchach that we only said va'ani. It's only going on half. Miu arei shoya seifa. We still don't know. Is it going on the first part? They said in Kabbalah Naziris, or is it going on the second part? So the Gemara, mina. This also you could be pushed from the Mishnah. This teretz to this question. The Amar v'alai legaleach. The fact that he added on, the fact that the second person added on v'alai legaleach, so it's a mashma v'ani is going on the first part of the dibur, and the v'alai legaleach is going on the second part that he's chayiv korbanos for other people. Zok the Gemara, Amalei Rav Huna Breder Yeshua Rava. So Rav Huna Breder Rav Shua told Rava, how do you? Maybe it's not a rhyme. Mai dahachi. How do you know all this? I could tell you that va'ani's mashma is going on the akuli dibura. It's going on the whole dibura. You want to tell me v'imashum v'alai? You want to know why the guy in the Mishnah, the second guy, had to add on v'alai legaleach? Mai ka'amar v'alai. I could tell you this that he said v'alai v'ha milsa. Maybe the guy was just trying to say that this thing he wants to be like his friend, but Avad is not ma'akev, he doesn't have to say it. It's just normal. When a guy hears his friend saying something, he repeats his words if he wants to do the same thing. But Avad, if he says vani, it would still work. Why is it the Gemara? If you don't want to tell me that this is true, so this diktani seifa, this is what we see in the seifa later on, Daf Yud Beis. It says over there, if somebody says Harei alai legaleach chatzi nazir, guy says he wants to bring half of the korbanos of nazir. V'shama chaveiro, his friend heard this. V'amar va'ani legaleach chatzi nazir. It says the same thing. The halacha is that he has a din like the first person. So the Gemara has a good tainer. Huna Yeshua is telling Rava, in that case in the Sefer Daf Yud Beis, what the first guy said Harei alai legaleach chatzi nazir. The second guy heard him say, and he said va'ani alai legaleach chatzi nazir. So over there also, there's no two things to makal on himself. It's all one thing. Guy didn't say Hareini Nazir and Vani Alag. All the first person said was Harei Alag Chatzi Nazir. So why does the second guy have to say Vani Alag Chatzi Nazir? He could have just said Vani. Why does he have to say Vani and Alai? Ella. My ka'amar alai b'ha milsa. The only reason the guy's saying, adding on those words, he's trying to say it's a normal derech. When he hears his friend said something, he's saying, I want to do the same exact thing, and he repeats all the words. So hachanami over here also, on our Mishnah on Daf Yudalv, you could say that this is he's saying va'ani, about it's the whole dibur like the first person that he hears, and then this that he says va'alai is b'ha milsa. He's only trying to say, it's only the derech to say over all the words, but avada it works for the whole dibur. So Amalei Rava told back of Huna Breder Yeshua, Hachi Hashta. That no, it's not a raya from the Seifa. That Tana was Myrich and said all these words. Zakt Rava, because maybe Yaram B'Shleim Reisha Tzricha. Maybe in the Reisha Taka has to say Vani and V'alai. Has to say both in order to get both the whole full dibur of the first guy to duplicate it. And the Seifa Taka don't need it. But the Seifa, maybe the Reisha Tzricha and the Seifa Loy Tzricha, and Tani Seifa the Loy Tzricha, Mishum Reisha Tzricha. The only reason why I said in the Seifa, Taka didn't, in the Seifa Taka right, the Mishnah doesn't have to say V'alai. Vani would have been enough. But I only said it because in the Reisha already said Vani and Alai, so it says in the Seifa also. So that would technically stem. But if you say Eli Amred Reisha Loy Tzricha, if you want to tell me that also in the Reisha he doesn't have to say V'alai, it's enough he says Vani, the Seifa Loy Tzricha, and the Seifa also does not need it, and it's enough to say Va'ani. So even though it would be Shver, Tani Reisha, the Loy Tzricha, the Tani Seifa Loy Tzricha, you can tell me in the Reisha it said V'alai, it's not needed, and the Seifa also says Alai, it's not needed. Why would it be in the Reisha and the Seifa, both of them say Alai, if it's not necessary? Why would Mishnah say that? Why would the Tana and two Mishnayos say a word that's extra? So Vada Zakti Gemara is Muchach that Va'ani, that Vada is not extra. And if he only said Va'ani, it's only go on, Mashmois is only on the first part of what the first person he heard say, which is already Nazir. And therefore the Mishnah added on and said V'alai. in our first mission over here in Daf Yud Aleph, in order for the whole Dibur to be Chal. And in the Seifa it says, Valai, that's Taka only Agav. It said in the Reisha, it says in the Seifa,